Welcome to Simply Styled Home. I'm Liberty, here to share timeless decorating tips and design inspiration. We're halfway through 2025, and even after years of new trends, fresh launches, and algorithm-approved spaces, somehow we keep coming back to the same things. Why? Because vintage does something that modern design rarely gets right. It slows things down. In a world that's always rushing forward, a space with just one, or a few, vintage pieces can feel like a pause button. It shifts the rhythm of the room. It makes the space feel less like a project in progress, and more like a story you've stepped into. One that's still unfolding, quietly, over time. We often treat vintage pieces like museum artifacts. Beautiful, but untouchable. It's easy to fall into the trap of preserving them too carefully, afraid to wear them down or accidentally damage them. But vintage doesn't have to mean fragile or overly precious. It can be part of a lived-in, functional home, one where history and everyday life coexist naturally. The key is to actually use vintage as it was originally intended. If you have an old armchair, sit in it. Let it be your favorite reading spot, not just a styled photo corner. Use the antique table for your morning coffee, even if it's a bit wobbly or scratched. When vintage is part of your routine, not just your design vision, it starts to feel more real, more yours. Blending old with new also helps vintage feel more grounded. Mix an antique cabinet with a clean-lined lamp. Place a worn Persian rug under a modern sofa. The contrast keeps the space from feeling like a theme. It shows that vintage isn't a style you're copying, it's something you're naturally incorporating into the way you live. And maybe most importantly, let go of the idea that everything old needs to be treated like it's fragile. A few chips on a ceramic vase, a scuff on an old wooden trunk. These aren't flaws. They're evidence of a story. You don't need to hide them. In fact, the imperfections are often what make a vintage piece feel warm and full of character. Instead of creating a vintage zone, try integrating vintage items throughout your space. A traditional mirror in a bathroom, a brass tray by the door for keys, or an old lamp rewired for modern use. Don't isolate these pieces. Blend them in. Let them carry their history while still being fully useful in your everyday life. When you stop thinking of vintage as something to protect and start seeing it as something to live with, your home becomes richer. It's not just decorated, it's layered with stories, texture, and soul. That's when vintage really works. Not as a curated moment, but as a natural part of how you live. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing. And as I always like to say, decorating doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be simply styled.